Hey, Science 20, we are back. Okay, we have learned, hopefully, all the vocabulary that we need to understand energy flow through the ecosystems. We're going to now take a look at how we apply this, and that is through food chains and food webs. So here, we'll just start off with food chains, and then we'll get into food webs in a moment here. But here, when we're talking about food chains, we are talking about a very simple way of explaining who eats whom in the community. So it's very simple, very basic. Um, and like, for example, grass community, here's how you would write it. You'd start with the producer first. So you go grass, draw an arrow. Remember, the arrows are going to represent the flow of energy. So energy flows from the grass to the deer because it is the deer eating the grass. If we have the arrow pointing the other way, that means grass is eating deer. That doesn't happen in the world. So draw another arrow, and we're going to have the wolf. So the deer are going to be eaten by the wolf. Again, arrow points the other way. It means the deer eat the wolf. That might sound like good karma, but that's not what happens in nature. Now, there are some rules about food chains we need to follow. Number one, at the first trophic level are going to be the producers. They're always first. If you're starting a food chain with something other than a plant, your food chain is wrong. Only one type of organism per trophic level. Now, there may be other animals that eat this type of producer here other than grasshoppers, but it's a food chain. We only show one of them. Also, one organism cannot occupy more than one trophic level. That means there are going to be no omnivores in a food chain. Now you're like, but what if we do have an animal that's an omnivore? It's going to be filling the role of being a carnivore or a herbivore, depending on where they are in the food chain. But remember, just because it's simple doesn't mean it is the more accurate. Anyways, decomposers, we assume that decomposers are feeding off of every trophic level, as we can see here, but in food chains, we don't include decomposers. So to make this more accurate, I'm just going to take all these arrows out and no decomposers. We are assuming the decomposers are here. We don't have to worry about it. Okay, so again, easy thing about food chains, they are simple. They are easy to understand and wrap your head around. Now, if we want to make things a little bit more challenging and a little bit more accurate, and that's the key thing here, this is accurate, we can take several food chains and interlock them together, and that's going to give us a food web. So the food web, a much more accurate. We do see producers still occupy the first trophic level. That is still always going to be the case. However, we can have more than one organism existing on a trophic level, and an animal it can exist on more than one trophic level. And so right here, we've got several herbivores here. We've got lemmings, voles, and mice. And we've got some larger ones with moose, deer, and elk. The wolf will eat all of them. Deer will be eating most of the vegetation that's here. Not so much the aquatic vegetation. That's going to be the moose. But everybody here pretty much has more than one food source. Now, we can add organisms that are occupying more than one trophic level. So the black bear is likely going to eat the deer, and it's going to eat mice, and it's going to eat voles, and it's going to eat lemmings. I'm just going to leave out the moose and the elk because they are fairly large, and black bears may not be going for them. But we're also can show that the black bears eat herbs, and they may eat berries, so they'll eat some plant material as well. Now down here is a page from your notes where you need to label the food web here. But before we get any further, I just want to talk about a few more general rules for both food webs and food chains that you need to follow. Um, so first one, no extinct animals. Nothing that is extinct. So you could have something like an apple, and the apple is eaten by a human. And then you're asking yourself, well, I need to have three organisms in this food chain. What is going to be eating the human? Well, you could say a T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex could eat the human. No, no, that's not going to happen. We're not going to do that. All right. So no extinct animals allowed. Let me just erase this here for a second. Uh, there we go. And so, anyways, you know what? I don't know why my eraser's not working on this thing. That's okay. Um, well, I won't worry about that. Okay, so let's go back to our list of what we don't include. No imaginary animals. So if we're looking for something that eats a human, we're not going to say, okay, well, how about dragons, fire-breathing dragons? No, that is also wrong. So it's not going to be humans being eaten by dragons because dragons don't exist. They are not real. Okay. We also want our food chains and food webs to be accurate. And as an example, I'm just going to get rid of this for now. But as an example of this, we could see uh, we could have grass and we could have sheep. And then I've had a student give this as a food chain, being eaten by cows. Cows are herbivores, not carnivores. Cows do not eat sheep. We get this idea as when we're young children that bigger eats smaller. So because a cow is bigger than a sheep, it makes sense that they would. No, they don't. So that's not gonna be not going to be the case. So they have to be accurate. And they also have to be realistic. And by realistic, what do I mean? Well, realistic, I mean it actually has to make some sense. So, for example, uh, I have had somebody give me the following food chain. They would give me grass, and the grass is eaten by a rabbit, and the rabbit is eaten by a wolf, and then the wolf is eaten by a great white shark. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. And the student said, but if a wolf eats a rabbit after the rabbit has eaten grass, and the wolf gets put on a boat and the boat sinks, and while the boat is sinking, the wolf cuts its leg, and so it starts to bleed, and the blood in the water attracts a shark, wouldn't the shark eat the wolf? Probably. But there's a whole lot of what ifs that have to come into play in order for this to work. So basically, keep it real, make it realistic. If you're sitting here, if you're having to say, but this has to happen, and this has to happen, and this has to happen in order for your food chain or food web to work, don't use it. Find something that's better. Okay. I don't want to see any dragons or velociraptors or Bigfoot or anything that doesn't belong there. I don't want to see sharks eating animals from all over the world. I don't want to see lions eating kangaroos. I don't want to see polar bears eating penguins because polar bears are in the Arctic and penguins are in the Antarctic. Make it real, make it accurate. And there'll be some homework where you're going to have to make some of your own food chains and food webs. So we'll get on that in future classes. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. So take care of all that, and I'll see you in our next video.